and it went to setup.
Thing.
All right, we should be live.
I think we're good to go. Hello, and welcome to Women at Warp, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Join us on our continuing mission to explore intersectional diversity in infinite combinations. My name is Kennedy, also known as the Storm Tribble, and I am joined by my illustrious colleagues at Warp here. Jump on in, folks. Introduce yourselves.
I'm Grace.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
All right, and welcome to our little corner of Virtual TrekCon 2.
Our very first live stream ever.
Is it? Ooh,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you guys.
So this is an illustrious day for all of us.
Hell yeah, this is great. So today we decided we would talk about some of the most fundamentally important types of relationships that you can possibly see in Trek. Because it is at its core a work show. These are all coworkers. But today we wanted to focus on the friendships, particularly the friendships between the women in Trek, which makes you think, okay, well, that makes sense. Plenty of folks back then were friends, but at the same time, typically when we think of Trek friendships, we think of Kirk Spock, we think of Jake Nog, we think of Data, Geordi, and we don't stop to think about the Crusher and Troys of things. And there's so many missed opportunities that we'll get into. But I know that earlier in the arc of the show, Sue, you all, the Fab Four, the original four, got a chance to discuss what some of those friendships are. Tell us something that you gleaned from that conversation.
Oh, well, yeah, this was only about 6 months ago or so, but it was an entirely different group conversation. And it was interesting when we talked about how the friendships are depicted and the difference in how the writers chose to show us a friendship between two men, like, say, O'Brien and Bashir, gallivanting around the holodeck, going on their adventures, and Dax and Kira, who occasionally also went on the holodeck, but when they did, wore princess costumes, or Crusher and Troi, who were always either working out in very interesting leotards or in the ship's salon. So it's definitely a very gendered conversation, at least in like 90s Trek for sure. And then there is, of course, what they're talking about. So most often, these friendships, when we see them, which is rare enough, the women among them are talking about the men in their lives.
Shocking.
Yeah, it's almost like there are people who think that our lives revolve entirely around what we think men think of us or what we think of men.
Shocking.
My God. My God.
Sarah, what are some of your thoughts about it? Because you're relatively new like myself. We'll get to you in a second, Grace.
I actually had a conversation about this with Nana Visitor a couple years ago, because I wanted to tell her, like, you or Kira and Jadzia really modeled a healthy female friendship for me. And she's like, I'm glad, but I wish our friendship had gotten more time versus like Julian and Miles. It was always, the focus was always on them and very little time was given to ours. And I have to agree, looking back at it, Julian Miles is like a huge story arc in the show. And whereas Kira and Jadzia just kind of like talked in the elevator or something.
Right. What are your thoughts, Grace?
I think we've definitely got a historical precedence in this, in that male friendships are more widely considered to be this profound, incredible thing, and women's friendships are seen as being more trivial. And Star Trek has always been kind of a pop culture macrocosm in that it shows a lot of the issues that we have just with TV and media as a whole represented. And with anything that's going on for 50 years, you're going to get kind of a core sampling of a lot of that, which on one hand, awesome, gives us so much to work with. But on the other hand, let's look at what we see. I'm going to take that Kira and Dax analogy right now and bring it back, because it's the one I want to compare to, like, say, Kirk and Spock, because with them, it's this profound, spiritual, incredible thing. Or like with Data and Geordi, they have these conversations about humanity and what their work means to them and what their personal self-fulfillment is and all that. But again, with Dax and Kira, we get talking about the guys. And I think we get that again with Crusher and Troi. And it just goes back to this really weird idea again that guys have profound, deep, insightful friendships that are like big, meaningful Gilgamesh style. They'll sing about our friendship for the ages, but women's are just kind of superficial. And who here has ever had like when you're talking to a guy being like, oh yeah, I'm meeting up with my girlfriends later, and then being like, oh, you're gonna talk about like shoes and hair and shit? Like, no. I mean, possibly, but that's not like the crux of it. And that's just a weird sort of repetition I've seen personally.
Yeah, I would definitely agree to that. I will say that to be fair, right, there weren't an abundance of female representation on 90s Trek, or how do we say pre-modern Trek, right? Let's do it that way. So naturally it's going to be Troi Crusher, it's going to be Dax Kira. But when you, and there's a trapping in that as well, because there could have been a real cool Janeway dynamic with B'Elanna, but they never really explored that. They kind of kept Janeway off to the side because she was captain, and didn't really get a chance to foster any type of relationship outside of the one she had with Tuvok previously and the one she fostered with Chakotay. But I feel like even the two of them, because the two of them butted heads the way that they did, they were scientists at their core. And whenever they got to figuring out a problem, as they always had to do on Voyager, because there was always something going wrong, these two would always be like, hey, science, science, science. You know what? You're absolutely right. Science, 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 science. Well, if
how can we science this harder?
We science and science, and maybe we could science into the science. B'Elanna go, brilliant.
Some of my favorite episodes. But I wonder about Janeway, though, if that character really could have a deep friendship on that ship, because she's their leader,
right? And
she's put herself in a position of taking care of them. So there's no way that there wouldn't be a weird power dynamic if she really tried to be a close friend of B'Elanna, if she tried to be a close friend of Seven rather than like a mentor figure.
Yeah.
We also had that question of whether she could have like a long-term or any kind of deep, meaningful romantic relationship for the same reason, because she was supposed to be this mentor figure to everyone. And I think we established at one point it was Kate Mulgrew who was kind of like, nope, no, she needs to be taken seriously, no long-term romance thing. But should friendship really fall under that jurisdiction in terms of an emotional attachment that like in any way demeans someone like that, or should people just be allowed to connect in the workplace like that?
Yeah,
I feel like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you truly be friends with your boss?
That's
fair. The question. Fair. You know?
And that's why her relationship with Tuvok was so important, because not only was he, eons older than her, but he also was emotionally unavailable enough where there was no pressure for her to define that boundary. Like, they were friends, they got along, they were colleagues, and she ended up going back in time to go fix him. It was incredible.
That relationship also existed before she became captain of Voyager.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, there could have been loads of great stories that focused on B'Elanna, forcibly sciencing herself with Janeway or with Seven. That was a missed opportunity.
I really wish we'd gotten to see the two of them become science pals, because so much of the dynamic that we do get is the two of them butting heads, and it's like, how cool would it have been if they'd like overcome that, and we'd gotten to see what cool friends they could be together.
I kind of feel like the most developed female friendship on that show might have been Seven and Naomi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily, hands down. Good observation.
I love that dynamic so much. Sorry, Kennedy.
No, go ahead.
Just because it reminds us that even though Seven has the appearance of an adult woman, she has the humanity. She's still a child in terms of discovering her humanity. So she's learning from Naomi in all of those scenes, more so. I mean, Naomi is definitely picking some stuff up from her as well academically, but they are it's a strange thing to say, but some of the most evenly matched that we see on that show. And it's such a wholesome relationship.
And I appreciate so much. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I appreciate so much that Naomi absolutely comes off as a small child who's around adults mostly and doesn't get to be around a lot of people her own age. So together with her and Seven, that's when they both get to have kind of kid time. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, they're definitely peers when you look at them from like a social construct.
Yes.
So, I think we'll double back to missed opportunities in a little bit, but I wanted to talk about the show that passes the Bechdel test with flying colors, Discovery, where everybody's friends. What? There's only one man in this room? I was getting done? Look at
You can do that on TV?
this is crazy. Wait a minute, hold on. You mean there are life and death decisions being made by only one dude? And a team full of women? That's incredible. Who knew it? Who would actually, function? Sarah, give us your thoughts about Discovery, because you were waiting. You were chomping at the bit there.
I really was, because Discovery is like just this web of female friendships. And I was actually trying to think of comparable male friendships in Discovery, and I couldn't think of any. Like, the dudes don't hang out. It's all the women. It starts in the second scene with Burnham and Georgiou, and Georgiou's talking to Burnham about how are we going to bring you up? How are we going to make you a captain? And then you see Burnham turn around and try to bring up Tilly. Mm-hmm. And there's just all these friendships. There's Burnham and the other Georgiou. There's Laurel and Cornwell. There's Tilly and Poe. There's Osekun and Detmer. There's Detmer and Ariam. It's just through the whole show, and they're all empowering each other, and they're all looking out for each other, and I love it so much.
Mm-hmm. And it's super not sexualized, right?
Yes.
Like these women are just explorers on a ship hurtling through space, normal space and mushroom space. You know what I mean? Like, and trying to survive. I'm sitting on Disco stuff. Spoilers. I'm sitting on them. You guys, I can't wait.
Yeah. It's exciting stuff.
Do not get us in trouble today.
I'm saying nothing. All I'm saying is that it's great.
Worth getting stoked for. It's
great. I love the dynamic between Detmer and Osekun specifically, because they are quite literally front lines, right?
Yeah.
And very rarely do we get to see the dynamic of the helmsfolk, right? They're always there, they're always present, and they're obviously a crucial part of the ship functionality. But, we never really saw a relationship develop between Sulu and Chekhov, right? It was Data and whomever extra they had for that week, whoever shift it was that time of day with Data. So with these two, not only are they scheduled together to be on the same shift, but they've also been through a whole lot and do really cool nonverbal communication. To shout out to both of those actresses for conveying that in a really cool way. But oh gosh, see, I'm a big fan of that. I just love the fact that there's a Nigerian last name on this ship manifest. And I love the fact that everyone has made the effort to pronounce it properly, except Pike. He got a little lazy once, but that's okay. It was Crisis, it was Red Alert, there was stuff flying everywhere. Extra syllables can catch you up if you don't need them to. But I'd say my favorite relationship on Disco has to be Michael and Tilly. Like, that is such a human relationship. Like, who else but Tilly to bring Michael out of her Vulcan shell? Right? Who else but Michael to validate Tilly in all of her accomplishments, her achievements? It's just really, really fulfilling to see, and to see both of them develop individually and collectively.
I love that moment when they're getting ready to go down to the Orion outpost, and Tilly sees that Ash is making Michael really uncomfortable, and she just walks right in between them.
She's got her back. No, I think
mm-hmm.
one of my favorite moments is first episode of season 2, when we get the point when Tilly's like, "Oh, you're gonna be down this asteroid thing. Can you grab me a rock?" yeah, I'll grab you a rock. And then as soon as they're back, she's like in the hospital after being horrifically injured. And she's like, I had a rock in my hand. I'm so sorry. It's like,
Science! I scienced! I
Wait,
tried to
it's-
grab the science and I couldn't grab the science. I tried. That's okay, I have notes. I scienced too.
It's just after that scene, Grace, that is maybe my favorite, when
yes.
they're in sickbay together and Michael is still in the bio bed
Mhm.
and they're just talking back and forth, figuring out how to do it, and they both just get so excited.
They're just like, oh my
about
God,
the
this is so
science.
cool.
Yeah. It's just
So
it's-
great.
And it's interesting that you brought up Laurel and Cornwell too.
Mm.
Because Cornwell, may she rest in peace, ate up every scene she was in. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, who's effing up? Whose admiral got us set straight? I wanted, like, her tenacity was so tangible. I wanted to instigate on that bridge, just to like micromanage and be like, ooh, this isn't calibrated properly. You better not let the admiral find out that you're over here slipping up with your metrics. Come get him, admiral, get him out of here. That's just me. I'm a shit kicker.
No, I'm behind you. I would love to see that.
Do we call that Laurel and Cornwell, though? Is that a friendship? Is that an arrangement of mutual convenience?
That's a good question,
What
though,
is
isn't
that
that?
exactly?
Like, shouldn't there be like a wide spectrum of friendship that we can, say falls under subcategories and such, that how much of just respecting someone constitutes friendship and vice versa?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
They
Because
certainly work or come to an understanding,
Yeah.
right, and start working towards the same goal.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wonder if either of those characters would classify it as a friendship. The actors certainly do. We know that for sure.
That's always nice, right?
I do feel like even though they met so briefly, there was like they let down their walls.
Mm.
And Laurel's like, oh my God, these Klingons, I just can't take it anymore. Can I go with you? And Cornwell's like, yes, you can come with me.
Yeah, it's
I
absolutely.
understand. I get it.
It's absolutely. It's brief, and we're not sure we can count it as a friendship, but it's absolutely a profound relationship for both of these women. Like,
For sure.
I'm thinking of Mary again, so I want to quote Wicked, and it's like they've both been changed. We don't know if they've been changed for the better, but because they knew each other, they've been changed for good. I just went full nerd there.
That's when it works, it works.
It works.
Let's talk about some of our missed opportunities.
Where to begin?
I
Where
know
to begin?
we dabbled a little bit at B'Elanna and Seven, and Janeway, and literally anybody besides Tuvok. Disco has it down pat, so they're good.
Yeah.
But I feel like Guinan is a huge missed opportunity.
I was just thinking exactly the same thing.
We only ever really saw her being consulted. Well, consulting, I guess. Yeah, being consulted for Picard. He was always coming to her with the heavy shit, and being there when people needed her, when the men needed her. But I guess she figured Troi and Crusher were good, that she didn't really need to advise him on anything.
She's like, these two are on top of it. They're good.
He has
These guys, on the other hand, they need me to guide them.
She has one episode with Crusher, but it's used as sort of a framing device for the story, because it's when she's when Crusher's relieved of duty after like doing an autopsy she shouldn't have, and she's telling Guinan this story about how she was relieved of duty, and it's the whole tennis elbow thing. Guinan makes up some excuse about going to see Crusher because of her tennis elbow, and at the end of the episode, I guess to thank her, Crusher brings her a new tennis racket. And Guinan's like, I don't play tennis. So like, they clearly weren't close enough that Crusher didn't know she didn't play tennis. So
Interesting.
that was very convoluted. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The episode is
no.
Suspicions. You could just watch it.
All right. Yeah, because I don't remember that one. I'll definitely dig around for that. But we had some cool, like, Black moments with Guinan where it was just her and Geordi, or just her and Worf, or in Nemesis we had all three of them at once, and the scene just popped with all that melanin, and I was like, oh, what's happening out here? but we never really saw her with anybody else, and that bums me out. They kind of hinted and Ro.
Yeah, we get to see her have a few moments with Ro, which are pretty great.
No? Okay, great.
Oh, I think I got a delay. Sorry.
Yeah,
with
we've
moments
got
what's happening?
we've got a little bit of a hiccup with I think Kennedy's internet might have broken up a little bit,
Oh
but
no.
we seem to be back now.
Okay.
But yes, Ro and Guinan, especially in Rascals,
Yeah.
have that moment.
That's
But
what I was thinking of.
they when they're kidified,
Mhm.
right? But I don't think we really see them together again.
Well, we do when in like Ensign Ro, when she first shows up, she gets to kind of hang out in 10 forward and be like, I never hung around long enough anywhere to make friends. And she's like, well, you got one now. So I appreciate that we had definitely the building blocks there. We just didn't get to see much more of it. And that really makes me think of the potential for more interaction we could have had with Guinan and some of the other crew members that we didn't get to see her interact with as much.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
for sure.
it have been great to see her and Troi be like, oh, it's so rough sometimes having everyone come to you for advice. Am I right?
Right?
All these dummies here don't know how to connect with their feelings. What do we do?
Right. Or even Troi coming to Guinan with questions because
Yeah.
Guinan's lived longer, so her
Yes.
experiences are going to be, and just adding to, there could be an academic relationship there. So many potentials.
As long as it's not a competitive one,
Yeah.
because we
Right.
don't need that
Who's got time for that?
anymore.
Right. Which is what they kind of, I guess, tried to do with Hoshi and T'Pol.
Yeah.
And when they realized that none of us were really having it, they just kind of didn't develop their relationship at all.
They're like, oh, they're not going for this one aspect we were shooting for. Whole thing's gone.
That's the thing that really no, there are lots of things about Enterprise for me. I have to amend that. But in the setup, right, you have T'Pol, who is there to be she's the one with experience, right, to guide this mess of humans who don't know what they're doing, to make sure they don't get in any trouble or start any wars, which they totally did anyway. And
Nice work there.
You have Hoshi, who is a genius in her field, but kind of freaked out by space.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got the setup to have T'Pol guide and mentor and take Hoshi under her wing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't ever happen. And it's not even that like the characters didn't get along or they were antagonistic. They were often like both on the bridge. They just didn't even speak to each other most of the time.
Yeah. And the thing is that both of them were also kind of the fishes out of water on Enterprise. I mean, we had Phlox, who's a literal alien from far, far away, but he's super genial and everything. And T'Pol is like, humans. And we've got Hoshi, who's like, oh my god, space is horrifying. They really could have worked off of each other. They really could have. So much missed potential. I really would have loved to see how they could have made that relationship evolve between the two of them. Because we do get to see T'Pol sort of evolve and be like, okay, this is my crew. This is what I'm doing. Hoshi gets a little more comfortable in space. But think of how it could have gone if they'd done that together.
Yeah. I mean,
think of the techniques that T'Pol could have taught Hoshi.
I know.
Yeah. Hoshi in and of herself was like a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Outside from her being, so that's the two major things about the character. She's freaking brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And is terrified of space. That's it. We don't know anything else about her. And it's just like...
That's such a good jumping off point that they didn't do enough with.
Right. She doesn't build any type of relationship with anybody else. Like, I just... You don't think she would have tried to bond with Mayweather because he's literally been to more places than she has been exposed to more languages. So maybe she wants to... I just feel like Hoshi got a real... And it's you almost forget she was there.
Yeah.
Because she was so underused. She was so underused. And I'm all for a strong comm officer. Because as far as I'm concerned, Hoshi built the groundwork for what Uhura was able to do. So if you were literally on a ham radio trying to translate different languages from tech that's light years more advanced than you, why aren't you focusing on this person? Why don't we see how she relaxes after a long day?
If I recall correctly, I mean, it's been a while, but she basically lays the groundwork for the modern universal translator.
Yeah, you're right. She absolutely does. Absolutely.
Uhura's probably got a picture of her on her mantle or something.
Right?
Give Hoshi
Yeah.
her flowers. All I'm saying. All I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sarah, you look like you want to talk about disco more.
Actually, no, I was just thinking, you know who I think would have been really good friends if they got the chance, was Jadzia and Moogie.
Oh,
Oh my
yeah.
god.
They both
Jadzia?
would have. They could have just bonded alone over talking about. You believe Quark? Freaking Quark.
Jadzia and Moogie would have launched a feminist revolution on Ferenginar.
I mean, Moogie kind of did by herself.
Yeah,
She did,
but
but
together
Jadzia would've-
Ferenginar couldn't have handled them.
Jadzia would have I don't know, put her on. I'm trying to think of a cool analogy and I'm drawing a blank. If Moogie's at like a 10 with her feminist revolution on Ferenginar, Jadzia's scientific expertise and the Dax in her, that's gonna instantly go to like a 50. And Ferenginar is not ready for a 12.
See,
So
Jadzia kicks ass. Let's make no bones about it. However, I feel like DS9 spent a lot of time trying to make her one of the boys.
Yeah.
And while, you know, that character type is fine, I wish we also saw her at times maybe be softer, maybe be a little bit more feminine. You know, because so much time, even saying things like, oh, the Ferengi aren't that bad once you get to know them. You know, excusing the blatant misogyny and
Yeah.
the sexual favors written into the contracts of Dabo girls. And, you know, she excuses some really problematic stuff, seemingly to be accepted by this group.
is that Jadzia or is that
Curzon?
Yeah.
Is that Curzon? You know, is that Tobias?
Right.
Wasn't one of them kind of like a scamp?
There was a murderer.
There you go.
That's pretty scamp-like, murdering people. Oh, the shenanigans I got up to in that shuttlecraft. But I do want to bring something into that real quick, because that also makes me think about how we've, in a lot of modern media, got this weird idea about the girl who's one of the guys and whether or not that means she actually has not guy friends. Which is weird, this idea that the two can't really coexist. And it's funny how we have kind of the two modes of Jadzia where she's one of the guys. And then when she's hanging out with Kira, they're just talking about boys and doing Lancelot and King Arthur's court stuff. And it's like they have two modes they're trying to switch her back and forth between. It's like, you know, those can... Part of the idea of this character is that all this exists in the same person. Why not work with that a little bit too?
Well, but in those, you know, Lancelot and Guinevere stories, Kira is not comfortable with that.
No, so why are they doing it then?
Exactly. Because it's funny to put them in period costumes.
Maybe they really wanted to wear big hats that day or something.
Maybe. They had some extra costumes laying around in the back.
There was a sale at Garrick's, and they just kind of went whole hog.
Sale at Garrick's. Yeah, that looked like that was left over from somebody else's set. And they were like, hey, we can do something with this.
I found this in the dump. Can we use it?
We got all this iridescent prom dress fabric. What do we do with it?
Right.
But actually,
it's this or we line the promenade and throw pillows.
You brought up Moogie, but do you remember Pell?
Pell. Why didn't they bring back Pell?
But the very short scene that we got with Pell and Dax was really lovely and really supportive.
And Dax being just the coolest about it, like, you like Quark, and it's like, oh, Quark doesn't even realize I'm a female. You're a female too? Awesome! It's the best.
She was pretty rad. I always hoped that Pell went on to, you know, do something earth-shattering.
Make a fortune.
Well, she gets to go off into the Gamma Quadrant and like spark deals for Ferenginar and stuff. So I want us to have a check-in with her at some point and being like, here's all the awesome stuff she got up to. Let me tell ya. I want that to happen. I want that to be a one-off.
I smell a fanfic.
Oh, I'm sure it exists.
Smell a spec script.
We just have to go find it.
It's got to be out there. It's got to be. If not, then it's our responsibility to put it into the world.
Yeah, for sure. Now, one of the other relationships that I saw on the flyer that never even occurred to me is Uhura and Rand.
Mm.
Because I admittedly I've seen all of the original series, it's all like childhood memory. So it exists and like the ambience is original Trek, but I'm not as versed as some of the newer ones. And I can't think for the life of me of outside of like maybe 2 scenes in the rec room where they were off like on a break together. I can't think of when they were cool. Can you think of anything?
There is, it's basically that one scene that always comes to mind with them where Spock is playing his lute and Uhura starts singing. But before that, they're like, I think they're eating lunch together and they're joking around and there are some games out. So it's certainly implied that the two of them are hanging out together, having fun.
I want to know more about their dynamic. I want to
Right?
see, because they're both awesome, capable ladies hanging out on the ship that's, supposed to be progressive and all that, but it looks like mostly dudes. Let's see what that dynamic is like for the two of them.
And Rand is certainly cheering her on when she starts singing.
Yeah.
But I mean, Rand also doesn't stick around very long.
Unfortunately, yes.
And Uhura and Chapel, to branch out on TOS, again, barely interact.
And we get that one scene where Chapel is reteaching her how to read.
Yeah, that's about it as far as my memory serves. Because I mean, they're a little more explainable than on Enterprise because Chapel doesn't hang out on the bridge.
Yeah, they're in different departments.
But it would be nice if we saw them, even acknowledge one another every now and then.
Again, I feel like that's a really good indicator of what I was saying earlier of the guy friendships. They're important, they're paramount, and the women friendships are just kind of there in the background.
I wonder if someone can make the argument that women have a better tend to, this is a very general statement, women tend to be better at compartmentalizing their relationships in a workplace environment.
You've got to wonder, yeah.
So the conflict, the epicness of their friendships aren't exactly as readily apparent as the men because they don't get into as much knucklehead shit. You know what I mean? It's whatever beef they might have with each other is usually resolved relatively quickly. And if not, I'm sure they don't discuss it in front of the guys. It could be any number of things.
Or is that being socialized to not be emotional on the job?
Yeah, it's a fair point.
I mean, because that is certainly a thing in our society, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I've got so much.
My theory, Sue. Thanks.
I've got so much to ponder now.
I didn't say I was right. I just offered another idea.
No. It's fair. But yeah, you just think about all the missed opportunities we could have had, and then you start thinking about whether or not these people. I mean, think about it. They weren't even able to really foster romantic relationships in a lot of the cases. I mean, it took 6 seasons for Tom and B'Elanna to get together. And outside, Disco being the exception because it's so, evenly yoked. Like you see a complexity of types of relationships with Disco. But I wonder if we have any examples of least favorite friendships. Because I always thought Dax and Kira was hella forced. And I would rather not see that, not see them have to be friends because they're the only women on the bridge crew.
Yeah.
Than trying to act like, I don't know. I just feel like they were really having a hard time trying to find their common ground. I mean, obviously they respected each other because they worked together and been through crises and whatnot. But I felt that was hella forced, and I got it, and I was happy to see them on screen together, but I was also like, how come they don't hang out with Keiko?
Yeah.
How come we don't see any, why don't they hang out with Keiko?
Doesn't Keiko have any lady friends of her own, outside of her husband and immediate family? And why don't we get to see that established?
I don't know. That's an excellent question.
It's almost
Well-
like they didn't put enough thought into her.
The one time that we do see Keiko having a friend, Miles gets mad about it. So because he gets jealous. Right? I don't say I'm not going to say I dislike any of the friendships, but there are definitely things I wish had been done differently. Like I wish that we saw Troi and Crusher, two medical professionals on the Enterprise D, working together when they had a patient, which never happens. You know, they get together and they talk about boys.
Yeah.
90% of the time that they're
Yeah.
together, they're not talking about their jobs. And they should be, because physical health doctors and mental health doctors should be working together to create complete care for somebody.
I mean, think about the amount of people who've had like medical trauma from stuff on the ship. Like they could have even been talking like Picard through his healing process post Borg and stuff. But no, they just talk about
Barkley.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, they just talk
Poor
about boys though. So I also don't have like a friendship that I dislike. I do have definite dynamics that I'm going to say it. I feel like a lot of male writers think go into or are structural components of female friendships that really bother me. Just to not sound like a broken record, but that whole idea that women's conversations are always just talking about the men who aren't in the room. It's that grinds my gears.
No, I hear that.
That scrapes the paint off my nacelles.
So speaking of missed opportunities, I feel like the 10 episode format is putting a lot of constraints on the new shows like Lower Decks and Picard, because I can't think of any female friendships from those shows.
I don't know. We get to see.
I mean, Seven and Rafi clearly have something going on towards the end. That's more romantic relationship.
Right, but Tendi and Mariner are friends.
Yeah, they do open mic night together.
Oh, that's right.
They hang out.
Destroy it.
Yeah, they kill it.
Destroy it.
That,
Which is
I'll admit though that one of my hang-ups on Lower Decks is that the characters are always paired up the same way.
Yeah,
it's
that's
always Mariner and Boimler and Tendi and Rutherford, or at least most of the time. They switched that up once or twice, but it took half a season before they did it. And I wanted to see Mariner and Tendi.
Yeah.
Right, because you keep thinking you're going to see it. On Picard, though, I was, I guess, surprised towards the very end of the season. Spoilers, by the way, obviously, when Geordi has sort of finally told the truth and like is freaking out. And Rafi, all of a sudden out of nowhere, who seems to have despised her up until this point, says, you know what, I'm going to take care of you. And like sits down with her and gives her cake. And the implication from that scene is that they're going to chat and work stuff out and she's going to be there for her, which was kind of an about face. And you're seeing all of a sudden like, oh, Rafi cares about her. This might be the start of a change between these two characters.
Is it a change or is it a, oh, you poor thing.
Yeah, that dynamic.
Look what you done.
Now that you mention it too, that dynamic I thought was interesting. And my impression was that Rafi read that she was not okay. And her mom instincts kicked in, I think, because she was feeling guilt from not being there for her son. And it's been a while since I watched Picard straight through, but I haven't watched it since. So I can't recall if that happened right when she was like spiraling, thinking about her son and the grandchild that she'll never meet and the daughter-in-law that she doesn't have a relationship with. And part of me thought that Rafi was like, she's up to something. Let me be extra nice, right? Let me kill her with kindness. And
hey, have some cake. Let's talk. What else you been up to?
Yeah.
You keeping any notebooks? Yeah. Got any extra compartments I should know about?
Right.
Let's talk.
So I kind of felt like that shift was in fact abrupt, like you were saying. But if it if memory serves and it happened at the same time, then it stands to reason. The 7 Raffi thing at the end was like, oh, let's go. I was like, yes, let's go. I was so happy for both of them. Like,
Yeah.
I lost my mind for 7 and Picard. When she linked up to that cube, spoiler alert, I lost my shit. I said, is this bitch about to be a queen? The 7 get her own motherfucking cube? Let's go. So to see her get that level up, and then to also for her to finally find, love, affection in somebody. I was like, oh, and for it to be Raffi too. I was like, yo, all right, let's go. Season 2, where you at?
It's always great when you get to see a character who's kind of been through the ringer get something like really awesome and emotional. To see both of them get to do that.
And I hope they make it explicit. And I don't mean explicit like adult content. I mean, but that would also be fine. But I mean explicit like
so that it can't be explained
denied.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, because we've gotten too much. Like if you look up Bajazel on Memory Alpha, it literally, at least for a while,
she's a close personal friend.
Personal friend. Like, no. So I want
they spent a weekend together in Paris or something. They lodged together in college.
Undeniable that Raffi and 7 are a thing. Just like we keep reading in interviews with the actors. I'm going off topic, but I'm doing it anyway. That Tony Newsom said, it's we didn't want to put it in the script, but her Mariner's friend, who's the captain now, they were lovers at the academy.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Put it in the script though.
Yeah.
We didn't want to put it in the script. Michelle Hurd said we didn't want to put it directly in the script, but the captain that she calls for a favor in Picard is a former lover.
Mm-hmm.
Like, put it in the script though.
It's amazing the stuff that gets prioritized.
And confirming something in an interview confirms nothing. It happens on the screen or it's not real.
Yeah.
So put it on TV, you cowards. And we can talk about friendships again.
Tell them how you really feel, sis.
I've been saying this for how many years now?
Tell them how you really feel. Yeah, it was like obvious that Mariner was bi, right? Like, who said it best? Andy,
I think Andy was the one who said she has major chaotic bisexual energy.
Yeah.
And it's not inaccurate.
And when her friend came on board, the sub-captain was like, okay, obviously these two were a thing. So just say it. Just say it. Just say it. Like, stop being afraid of it. It's not dangerous. Like, it's not a problem. Like, get over yourselves. Get over yourselves. This is supposed to be the 24th century and beyond. We're in the 32nd century at this point. Like, catch up. Let's go. Let's go. Sarah, you've been quiet. I don't like it. What's going on? How you feeling? What are you thinking about?
I'm just having such a good time. This is so nice sitting around with like my Star Trek girlfriends talking about all the Star Trek girlfriends.
Aww. Girlfriendception. Oh my God. Yes.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Girls being friends. Talking about girls being friends.
My argument for Mariner not being closer to Tendi and for her and Boimler to have that bond is because they're both command ensigns.
Okay.
And that they're constantly going to be assigned to the same thing and they're in the same division essentially. Whereas Rutherford and Tendi are such epic nerds that they've bonded over the D&D table.
Yeah, they've also got that intense, I want to be friends with everyone I meet energy, so I'd like to see that play.
Which is going to be interesting because ultimately Rutherford is in a relationship with that ship.
Yeah.
Like his heart is in those Jeffries tubes. And unless you're a manifold that needs recoupling, I don't have time for you.
Oh my gosh, what if they give the ship a brain computer and then he can make it official?
Yeah. Rutherford is destined to fall in love with the ship's computer through the holodeck. It's going to be it's like
going to be Geordi LaForge all over again.
I don't know if the computer can actually engage with it. It's a lot less creepy than the Leah Brahms thing.
Yeah, I have a feeling that he's going to rewrite some codes so that Badgie isn't going to be quite as terrifying, and then scrap the code altogether because it's impossible, and start from scratch and create like a little avatar, like a Cerritos avatar, and she's going to be like Janet from The Good Place.
This is kind of giving me Andromeda flashbacks also, so.
Ooh, Andromeda. Oh
I'm
my
feeling
God.
it.
Keep coming. I know we brought it up towards the beginning, but my brain keeps coming back to B'Elanna and Seven.
Mhm.
And that missed opportunity and how antagonistic B'Elanna was towards Seven. I mean, B'Elanna was antagonistic in general.
She was
That
an abrasive
one of-
person, but especially the two of them. We like see them threatening to come to blows in the mess hall and stuff like that. And that would have been really meaningful if these two kind of abrasive personalities had realized, hey, let's hate everyone together.
But I mean, I also kind of get it because we're talking about a Borg drone, right?
Yeah.
She's a former Borg drone. She is, if not directly, at least, tangentially responsible for a lot of terrible things. She was, worked right alongside the Borg Queen. So I get discomfort. I get coming to terms with it, but I wish we had seen B'Elanna do that, make that journey to figure it out. We saw Seven do it and come to terms with how to process what she had done in the past, but we didn't see any forgiveness from B'Elanna about it.
Well,
And the two of them could have done so much if they worked together. And like, we also could have seen B'Elanna grow and maybe learn to deal with some of that antagonistic confrontational trait that they gave her. However, I will say a lot of the crap that people gave Pulaski was for being mean to Data. And if Seven was Voyager's Data, they did not give the same crap to B'Elanna for being mean to Seven.
That's because Pulaski was like borderline racist.
Yeah.
Well,
Like she towed that antebellum South line a little too well for my taste. I came to like respect Pulaski after a while, but every time she said something about Data, I was ready to throw hands. I'm like, homie, keep his name out your mouth. Don't talk about him.
Learn to say it right. Learn to say it right.
If you can't speak about Data respectfully, don't talk about it because I'm going to fight you. You're going to have to put your suits, your surgery skills together for real.
I love how defensive everyone gets for Data.
Ooh,
It warms the heart.
I get it, but I guess my point is I'm just relieved that B'Elanna, after the introduction of 7 of 9, did not get slapped with that same unlikable label. That happens so often.
For one thing, 7 could dish it out as well as take it. So there was that in her corner. And also, we were talking earlier about the relationships in Discovery and how we have like all these women kind of helping elevate each other career-wise and being like, okay, let's get you up the ladder. How do we do this? But can you imagine if we'd had a relationship like that with B'Elanna and 7 in terms of both of them dealing with kind of their past trauma and how they could have...
I'm not to cut you off, Grace. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool.
I think the true missed opportunity with 7 and B'Elanna specifically is this: they needed to fight.
Yeah.
No one likes to see people come to fisticuffs on Star Trek. We're supposed to be enlightened and excellent.
And yet we all get hyped for that fight music.
Those two in particular needed to fight. B'Elanna needed to fight somebody other than herself.
Yeah.
Right? She had gotten to the point where she was no longer battling B'Elanna. She needed to Klingon. She was a Klingon. She needed to get that out of her. Yeah. And 7 needed to get her ass beat. So not because 7 was doing anything too reckless, but she just needed to suffer a defeat.
She needed to learn.
She needed to learn.
She had a bit of a pretentious, conceited attitude problem.
She was super arrogant.
For quite a while.
And the fact that 7 presents so Aryan looking, like I'm sure does not make the Torres in B'Elanna feel any better either. You know what I mean? And the fact that we're forgetting is that B'Elanna was Maquis. She didn't have pips to worry about. She would fight somebody. And I feel like in Voyager's context particularly, them being so far removed from Starfleet and so gray area ultimately about which parts of the regulations that they'll follow. If there was ever a fight that needed to happen, just like in Disco, when Saru stood back and let Culper and Ash go at it, that's what needed to happen.
Don't stand in the way of that. That's a catharsis fight right there.
They need to work that out, and
Yeah.
everybody's viewpoint is valid, and taken under consideration, it's completely justifiable that both of these dudes want to fight for whatever reason. It is completely justifiable that B'Elanna one day would be like, you know what? I'm tired of your mouth. Fight me. No, I don't care. Get off me. I don't care. Fight me. I don't know. I'm tired of your mouth. Fight me right now. I'm giving you the second. And Samu would just be like, it's really just so telling.
Oh, you think me and Tom are loud? Do you want to get really loud?
Like, they needed to fight. And then they needed to get scolded by both the captain and the EMH and assigned tasks together.
Yeah.
Get over it. Now you've knuckled it up. We're going to hug it out. And you're
Put them in the get along together shirt.
Oh, yes. Don't make me shackle you, because I will. Because you two are entirely too brilliant to be at each other's throats like this at all times. So if you need to fight it out, go ahead and fight it out. Seven's sturdy enough to take it. She probably deserves it. And B'Elanna needs to get out of her system anyhow. And I feel like not allowing B'Elanna the chance to fight her really kind of... I've got strong doctrinization theories about Klingons and Starfleet, but we'll put that in another discussion.
Ooh.
Yeah, I guess you're absolutely right that it boils but never like really comes to a head.
And I get it. Not to cut you off, because I want to hear what your thought there. I get it, because we're supposed to be in this Roddenberry future where we don't have to fight. And I can understand why the writers would then like, oh, we don't want to want the few women on the show competitively against each other, because then it gives this and then it gives that. But some women, it begs to challenge the archetype that women aren't confrontational and that women aren't scrappy and that women won't beat your ass if you get out of line.
Or any two women, if you put them together, all women are friends with other women.
Yeah.
We're either besties or we're in competition with each other, and that is
or both.
Well, and that's a binary that should not exist, right?
No.
Just because there are only two women in the room, which there never should be only two women in the room, unless there are only two people in the room. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are best friends, right? Like you were saying before with Kira and Dax, right? They might not mesh, but they respect each other and they work together. And just because there are only two women in the room, it doesn't mean that they're in competition with each other either.
Right.
One of obviously the Crusher fan, which comes up every opportunity I can. I really don't mean to.
No, it's so refreshing, Sue, because growing up watching Next Generation, I never looked at Crusher. I never looked at Troi, because all I saw, and this is going to sound terrible, but all I saw were white women. And inherently, that experience is never going to be anything like mine. So I was looking at Guinan, I was looking at Geordi, I was looking at B'Elanna, because a white woman doctor may not have my best interest in mind at all times. So to hear you specifically talk about Crusher in this way is really like, okay, I can relax. I can relax, because I was ready to be like, well.
Whenever Crusher comes up in like wider fan conversations, or Pulaski comes up, automatically in the comments, without fail, somebody starts pitting them against each other. I liked Crusher better. I like Pulaski better. And I mean, obviously I have a favorite, and young me disliked Pulaski because she wasn't Dr. Crusher. But as an adult, I have a different perspective on Catherine Pulaski. And the thing that I want to like yell to fandom is, it's not a competition. You don't have to like one more than the other. You don't have to say one is better than the other. They're different people with different strengths and different personalities.
It's not Highlander. There doesn't have to be only one.
Right. And I mean, 20 minutes ago I said, put it on the screen, you cowards. But in one of the more recent tie-in novels, the one called The Missing, the two of them go on a mission together, and Crusher and Pulaski are working together to solve a medical mystery. And it is like everything finally came full circle, and I saw these two characters working together, and it wasn't a competition. And it was just so lovely to see.
I really hope sincerely, though, that there was a point when Crusher was just like, "You were mean to Data?
Yeah.
If you watch the
He is a close personal friend.
here's the missed opportunity
He
of
taught my son to water ski or something."
the friendship between Pulaski and Data, because by the end of the season, she defends him.
It's true.
And the thing that
There
I
is
think
growth
is the
in
missed
their relationship.
opportunity is I think Pulaski should have testified in Measure of a Man. I think they should have called her to the stand and
Yeah.
had her say, look, I felt the same way you did when I came on the ship.
If
and
there was any
here's what
time
I
to
have
bring her back,
learned
that
about
was then.
Data."
Yeah.
And that's where that relationship could have truly been repaired, because they went on holodeck adventures by the end
Yeah.
of her season, so ugh.
They cosplayed together.
Yeah.
They did their
but
shit.
that scene where that episode really where Geordi accidentally creates Moriarty.
Yeah. Gosh.
I found that episode so conflicting, not to get terribly off topic, but because, hey, it's cool to see a Black Watson, right? Look at Geordi and Data are LARP. Look at them LARP. Look at
You're
these
having
nerds
a great
LARP.
time.
Look at these nerds LARP, And when Pulaski tried to, she just the microaggressions, the constant barrage of passive aggressive, racist BS. I'm like, yo, I'm looking at Geordi sideways now. Like, you gonna let her talk about your friend like that? You just gonna let her talk about your friend like that? You not gonna beat this woman up? Just no. You're right. You shouldn't do that. But you shouldn't let her talk about him.
Yeah.
Like, you just gonna sit here quiet.
That's part of what makes the whole Bones McCoy aspect that they were kind of trying to bring into TNG not work, because Data's not going to punch back. Data's going to take it, because either he is just letting it go off his back or he's not getting it. And that's the unfortunate thing. And I think that's part of why we get so defensive of Data.
Yeah.
If we could, before, I know we're nearing our end of our time, but there's one friendship we haven't really brought up that I was hoping we could, and that is Janeway and Seven. And speaking of characters trying to kind of bring each other up and being like, hey, how do we make you more comfortable around other human beings? How do we do that? How do we make
friends? Was she grooming her to be? Was there like a romantic thing though? I always thought
there are people who definitely
dynamic
read it
was,
as
like,
such.
It was this weird mother-daughter, teacher-student.
But at the same time, it seems like there are a lot of people who've read like some really intensive importance into that teacher-student relationship there, no matter what else it may have been in terms of, okay, Janeway is the one who brought her on here. Janeway is the one who's trying to help her find her place in here. And I think that their friendship or relationship is the only exception that I can think of in terms of the guy friendships talk about deeper, more profound understandings, and the girls talk about boys. And the two of them are talking about, Seven, what's your place in humanity?
Yeah.
How do you feel about this? So I feel like theirs is the relationship that kind of broaches that.
That's a good point, Grace.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Well, I promised in social media promotion that if people joined us, there would be at least one cat on the live stream. And my cats have been surprisingly well behaved. So I'm
Kennedy's got it.
I'm going to get a live cat before we disappear.
A grudge.
She's a
queen.
queen. She's
a queen.
Here we go.
oh man.
Oh.
She was
Hello.
surprisingly behaved. This is Oswin. She thanks you for coming to this panel.
Hi,
That's all. That's all I have to say.
Thanks.
I just want to throw out there that I think probably the most important friendship in the entire history of the Federation was Burnham and Emperor Georgiou, because Burnham is the one person Emperor Georgiou will not kill.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for that, Emperor Georgiou probably would have taken over the entire Federation at this point.
Oh yeah.
But she knows Burnham will come after her if she steps
Yeah.
too far out of line, so she keeps it in check.
If this girl who didn't look like her daughter wasn't here, imagine what she would have done.
I have thoughts about Emperor Georgiou. That's for another time.
Yeah.
For more from us, real quickly, where can folks find you all on the internet? We'll start with Sue.
Oh, you can find me. Usually I say here, but you are here, assuming that you're watching this. You can find me on Twitter at Spaltor, Spaltor.
And Sarah, where can folks find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Sarah Miyoko, Sarah, M as in Mary, Iyoko. And you can find my fanzine, Star Trek Quarterly, on Facebook.
And Grace, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at BoneCrusherJank. That's BoneCrusherJenk. Okay, got the whole thing out. And you can find me at home pondering the mysteries of friendship and interpersonal relationships. Don't find me at home. That'd be weird.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know. That sounds complex.
Yeah.
You can find me on both Instagram and Twitter at that Mikey Chick. That's that MikeyChick. Don't act up in my comments because I will drag you and then block you. There's been evidence. Okay.
Sarah, did you have an announcement for us?
Yes, Women at Warp will be having a holiday party. Date and time in December to be decided. It'll be on Zoom. Everyone's invited. So follow us on social media. We're Women at Warp on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Yep.
I was going to say all of that. Go to womenatwarp.com for previous episodes. Find us all on social media at Women at Warp, and live long and prosper. Be nice to each other, you guys.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Treasure your Star Trek friends.